Ladies and gentlemen, well, first of all, thank you for your words of encouragement and in particular for what you said about my husband. It is a tribute to India today that such a distinguished group of speakers and guests have been assembled for this conclave. To be the beneficiary of some hedging, what with hedge funds being so popular these days in Indian market. Let me assure you straight away that I will not inflict on all of you an election again. We gave ourselves a magnificent constitution that has served as a charter for a peaceful social economic change. And in spite of various stresses and strains, we have proved how a land of the most incredible diversity can live harmoniously and how multiple identities can flourish in a modern nation state. We went from a country that had an average rate of economic growth of just about 0.7% per year in the first half century to a country that achieved a 7% rate of economic growth in the last years of the century. By the mid-1990s, we had become the fourth largest economy of the world. We built a public sector that industrialized India, developed its backward regions, and stimulated the growth of private industry as well. We created an extensive infrastructure for science and technology that has made India a front-ranking nuclear and space power. We established a very large number of universities, professional institutions, and research laboratories that are today earning us global encomiums. And from being a country classified as a basket case in the early 60s, we became self-sufficient in food grains by the early 1980s and are now poised to be one of the agro-powers of the world. And we carved out for ourselves a distinctive niche in world affairs. However, we all know that there are still many, many challenges to confront. But let us not take the achievements of the last 6 decades for granted. These have been solid, enduring achievements of farmers, of farm labor, of over 300 million workers in the unorganized sector, of entrepreneurs and professionals, of scientists and technologists, of businessmen and managers. All these are the achievements of the people of India. No doubt the future beckons. Now, how will we realize our full potential depends entirely on ourselves. External greatness flows from internal strength. Global leadership rests on local transformation. If our country wishes to be exclusive on the world stage, then I believe that our society must remain all-inclusive at home. Most of all, it will depend on whether we build on the idea of India as it has evolved over millennia, or whether we reject this idea of a syncretic India, of composite Indian nationhood. Faster economic growth is, of course, most essential, but this growth must take place in an environment of social harmony, in an atmosphere of social cohesion. Economic liberalization and social bigotry, I believe, can be a poisonous brew. The closing of the Indian mind is simply not compatible with the opening of the Indian economy. There are some regions, as most of you will know, some regions in our country that have seen impressive economic growth. But these are also regions that are witnessing social polarization. And on the other hand, in other parts, social relations work quite well. But here, economic growth has been less dynamic. The challenge, therefore, will be to work and sustain a fine balance between economic imperatives and social realities. The challenge, therefore, will be to sustain economic growth that provides equality of opportunity for all, economic growth that empowers the many as opposed to enriching the few. The poor, I believe, must become partners in development and not its victims. A small section of society cannot appropriate the gains of growth, while large sections are left bearing the brunt of its pains. If this imbalance is not recognized and rectified, we could well face endemic social unrest. The continuing Indian century cannot rest on a fiscally bankrupt state. So also, it cannot rest just on the so-called magic of the marketplace. It is the synergy between private initiative and public intervention that will remain critical and crucial. Now, it is inevitable that as India prospers and gains further global recognition, a sense of nationalism also is reinforced. But what type of nationalism should we foster both at home and among the diaspora? The architecture of Indian nationalism has always rested on the best of the Indian ethos, given contemporary meaning by some of the most remarkable Indians, Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, and C. Rajagopalachari. Our founding fathers, a glittering galaxy of brilliant minds and noble spirits, gave us a nationalism that is liberal and that derives strength from India's plurality. They gave us a nationalism that is self-confident and proud of our past, a past created by the intermingling and confluence of numerous cultures and beliefs. They gave us a nationalism which blends tradition with modernity, that celebrates our multiple diversities, just as it nurtures our many unities. And today, one of those unities is in full flow in Karachi. Now, what type of nationalism will the India of the 21st century embrace, the fabric in its pursuit of economic progress? Will it be a nationalism that is aggressive, or will it be a nationalism that is accommodative? Let there be no mistake. There is a confrontation of competing visions between an open-minded secular nationalism and a narrow parochial nationalism. Individuals may put on a veneer of moderation and give us a feeling that this confrontation does not exist. But ultimately, ideologies and institutions behind individuals are what matter more. Can we ignore that there is a school of thought that rejects the very basis of Indian nationalism as handed down to us by the father of the nation? Pride, ladies and gentlemen, must not stoke prejudice. Divisiveness should not undermine India's date with destiny. It is here that I believe that politics has to play a very special and a very crucial role. Politics is providing representation. Politics is giving voice to new groups and communities. Politics is forging new social alliances and alignments, giving new confidence to old identities. All this, of course, has to be welcomed and cherished. But there is something more. If individual achievements are to have a collective impact, if what Indians do is to make a difference to India, then all of us in public life have a great responsibility to change the nature and course of contemporary politics. Cynicism about politics and politicians can be dangerous and could subvert the very foundation of our democracy. Elections, we know, provide the oxygen to keep our democracy going. But politics in our country has to rediscover for itself a higher sense of moral content and social purpose, going beyond mere numbers. Politics must be grounded in core values. These values must provide directions and inspirations that bind the country together. Politics has to be more than just pursuit of power. It must be more about service and sacrifice as it once was, as it once used to be. And it must attract and retain the best and the brightest. It must not only offer hope that gets renewed from time to time, it must fulfill the expectations and aspirations of all our people. We meet here to talk about the Indian century. A continuing Indian century must be one in which each and every Indian, particularly those who are deprived and disadvantaged, can both participate and partake. The continuing Indian century will without doubt come from the exuberance, the energy, the enterprise of its youth, of its women, of its entrepreneurs, of its civil society. Yet it will also demand a whole new vision for the state, a whole new definition of its role and responsibility. This vision must give the state a new strength. It must impart to it a renewed vigor so that it becomes an effective instrument of economic growth and social change. Let me once again thank India Today for giving me these few minutes to step away from my electoral campaign and share with you some of my concern and my worries. And I sincerely hope that I have not made the luncheon atmosphere too heavy by my Siddhi bath. Thank you. Thank you. So far. Then one of the most important areas where we would want to work would be to enforce the rule of law without fear or favor against those who disturb social harmony and spread bigotry. One. The second would be to revive agriculture by increasing public investment and, of course, by expanding rural credit. And also, we would be focusing single-mindedly on promoting growth of productive jobs, because our young people, as you have mentioned, amongst many of their complaints, their major one, of course, is unemployment. We have quite a detailed work plan with us on these priorities, and it will be made public. I'm talking about our manifesto. It will be made public in perhaps in a few days, 3 or 4 days.
I have a question about political reform. You made 2 important points. First, that if we are going to transform India, politics must be in command. And second, if we are going to achieve that, politics must attract the best and the brightest. But there are far too many barriers to entry in politics. There is no level playing field when financing of political parties is what it is, opaque, uneven. And there is no entry for the young, for the talented, who have no connections, who have no kinship in the political process, for they do not have the only access which money provides. Do you believe the time has come for us to think seriously about political reform in this domain? First, do you think we should mandate disclosure of all contributions received by political parties? Do you think we should require expenditure incurred by political parties to be made open? Do you think that there should be audited accounts of political parties that are available for public scrutiny by citizens? Do you think that there is a need to raise absurdly low limits on electoral campaign expenditure? For everyone in India knows how much it costs to run a Lok Sabha election. And last but not least, do you think there should be public funding of elections?
It is the Congress party. Within our party, we had set up a committee headed by Dr. Manmohan Singh precisely to look into all these areas. And the committee, of course, met 2 years ago. But I must admit that things are not sort of proceeding at the speed in which we would have wanted it to be. I think it's probably going to be a slow slow process. But I do believe that political parties should certainly disclose where they are getting funds from, and they should also have audited accounts, definitely. And one more question, you said whether the amount spent during election should be raised. I think it should, because if it doesn't, then it gives for, again, from non-transparency and for, the sort of things which are unfortunately going on.
Chandra, political parties, what is your party doing with regard to antecedents of candidates? The last time the Chief Election Commissioner followed a Supreme Court directive and mandated that all parties must have a full disclosure, your party joined the ruling party in...
No, I'm sorry, you are not quite correct here. When the Supreme Court order was passed, we were the only party who fully supported it.
I stand corrected. But as I understand it, barring keeping out convicted candidates, do you also see that are you also keeping out candidates who have charges against them, serious charges of criminal conduct but have not yet met with conviction?
Well, if there are serious charges against them, certainly they will not be included, or they would not be given tickets for fight elections, if there are serious charges. But basically the Supreme Court order on disclosure gives directions, and those directions the Congress party will certainly follow.
I think we have a friend from Pakistan.
If Congress forms the next government, in what way would your peace process, your election peace process, differ from that of Prime Minister Vajpayee? You did refer to the match now taking place in Karachi, where your daughter is already there. So how would you see the process continuing?
Perhaps you are not aware that the Congress Party has supported the initiative taken by the Prime Minister from the very beginning. In fact, even when government was reluctant to talk, to re-initiate a dialogue with Pakistan, we all along stood firm on our belief that a dialogue ought to be initiated. And we are very happy that eventually the Prime Minister listened to us. So he has our full support.
The peoples have made us believe. By the way, I'm Mathur Bajaj from Doon School.
Now you will get an answer.
The peoples have made us believe that the Congress Party is not getting enough funding from the private sector or public as much as you would desire. And if that is true, what are you going to do about it?
I may just come and ask you for some help.
Answer that. Madam, you know my brother met you last week.
You got a question on that.
But more important is, how do you think that elections should be funded? There's been a big debate about it, whether private sector, public, whatever. What do you think, how should the funding be done?
Well, certainly from the public sector, we would welcome checks, for instance. And if government, if we can also get some help from government, some government funding, that would certainly help.
I think no supplementary, just please. Can I do little?
Of coalitions, and to my mind, it's a phase which is likely to last for some time. But I am not convinced that it will last forever. And I think we'll just have to wait and see. But probably it will take quite some years for it to, for the polity to revert to perhaps just two major parties.
Thank you, Sonia ji. Now I'm looking at your speech. भाषण के बाद लगता है कि जरूरी डरे होंगे वो जिस तरह का aggressive posture आपने लिया है. Thank you once again for sharing your thoughts with us. With you, madam, that we will have an Indian century only when even the deprived and disadvantaged can participate, madam. Now we know why some of your colleagues hide you from us. Not only from us, from everybody else. You are more effective than most of them who are my friends in your party. They are jealous of your popularity. Because you are both, as Mr. Arumpuri said, you are the most powerful leader opposition ever had. I know your corporate chief, but even the glimpse of you what you have given to the Congress vision has been quite revealing and convincing. Whether in the ruling party or in the opposition, you have understood the true spirit of democracy. Our great India cannot be run by one ideology as it is Europe, but I must confess that we are certainly feeling good after listening to you.
May I request Mr. Arumpuri